Hello and welcome to Expresso 101. It is Voz here from Ace5 Studios, and I will be explaining to you what Expresso is and how it can help you in your day-to-day workflow, and why you'd want to use it. So let's get right into it. Firstly, why are you going to use Expresso? What is Expresso actually? Let's go with that. Expresso is a visual programming language. That's the best way I can explain it. It lets you do stuff that you would normally have to use a programming language for without actually writing any code, which I find wonderful because I hate writing code. It is complicated, you have to remember a whole bunch of syntax, and it's, not my cup of tea, how you English people say. So, let's get started. But this is the first thing that I used, I think, Expresso for. Well, potentially. Anyway, it was a long time ago, but this is what most people, I think, would find Expresso most useful for. Is text objects. Let's make a text object. We have this text here, and our main problem is when we change the text here, for example, we call it, a figurative cow. Now, the problem is, I can't spell, can I? Anyway, let's just call it smashed cow. Okay? Sorry to all the animal rights activists, I'm not actually smashing cow, just the text. Okay, we change to smash cow. The thing is, here it is not actually, it is not appearing. So if we have like a couple of these texts, just click and drag, and then control click and drag to copy if you don't know by any chance. Now, if I want to select one and I want to, for example, put it into a Hypernurbs or something, I have to actually click on them to find out which one I want. Like I have to select them here to find it, which is rather inconvenient. And more importantly, it's just difficult to tell them apart. So what we're going to do is we're going to feed this string here, like this information in this text box, into the name field of this object with Expresso. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to right-click on this object. We're going to go Cinema 4D tags, and we're going to select Expresso here. And now here's Expresso window. I've docked it into my screen so you guys can see it, so it doesn't go off screen. Actually, I think I'm going to be docking it horizontally. Yeah, I think that way will be better. Okay, so I've docked into my screen. And now we're going to get this text here, and we're going to drag it into this Expresso window, Expresso editor, twice. The first time we're going to take information out of it, we're going to be taking the actual text field out of it. So see here you have basic coordinates and object. See, in basic you have the layers, the name, stuff that's the same for every object. Coordinate is its location, and object is the specific properties for this parametric object. For this, yeah, I think, anyway, an object properties which are like specific to the object you have selected, like not shared with other objects. So let's go here, we click on this little red square and we go object properties. And then from here we go text. See that we have this field here now. And then we want to get the name, we want to feed it into the name property. So we can either click on this blue dot and go basic properties name, or we could just drag and drop it and it'll let us select. Like see, if we don't have this, we can drag and drop onto the blue thing and then we go basic properties and name, and it'll be connected. And now click, go to refresh, and look there, it matches. So now if we write, angry beaver, and we click, see, it matches. Very useful. Okay, now let's go slightly further up, because I'll, why this is useful, because obviously if you have just one text, you can click on it. But what if you say you have this text in a Expresso, and then you have it in a null, Alt G's to put the object into null. And then there's, for example, as a bend deform, that's you're using to bend the text, for example. See? And you want this null object to always have the same title as whatever the text is under it. So what you do is you go to your Expresso thing and you drag this null object here, and then you drag this text field up here, and you go basic properties, name. And now this null object will always have angry beaver in its name, or whatever you type in here. If you can change, for example, and go, lollipop land. My spelling is horrible, I'm so sorry. See? And it, you know, it propagates through. I mean, if you actually go to the help file, you can probably learn the syntax or how to write it so it's like lollipop land text or something, so a bit, you know, it's more advanced. Okay, so we've done these basics, right? Yes, and of course, and you don't, you know, you can attach anything, you know, there's no limitation where this Expresso tag can be. You can put it here, for example, and it will still work. And you can, you know, feed this text into there, you know, by dragging it in and then going basic properties or object properties text. And, you know, if you want, you can make this text here, the one that's in the bottom, feed the one that's in the top. So here we go, we go object properties text. And now we have this one text feeding the information. So now we have this text object, this text one object. We can say, you know, truck drivers, and click, and now see it feeds them through. So that's kind of what the basics of Expresso is. It lets you connect, you know, fields to each other relatively painlessly. Yes. Okay, now let's go do something slightly more advanced. First, let's get rid of these things. I'm slightly annoyed by this shading. Where is it? There's this thing which lets you get rid of shading. Save frame. There we go. Save frame. Sweet. Okay. Now let's go to our next part. I'm going to show you how to use a very common node called a range mapper. It's basically the thing that I use most in Cinema 4D because it lets you convert one set of numbers into another set of numbers. So for example, let's say we have this, let's make something interesting. Let's make a flower spline. Let's make a curve from the right view. And then let's put them into a Hypernurbs. Okay, wrong order. There we go. Okay, and now we're going to add a cube. Moving this away. By the way, the Q key turns the modifier on and off. See, very useful little feature. The Q key on the keyboard. Okay, anyway, so we have the cube right now. Its position is 0, 0, 0. Now we're gonna add a null. We're gonna put all of this in a null. Alt G. And we're gonna add an Expresso tag to it. Let's go. Right click, Cinema 4D, Expresso tag. Now, this cube, basically what we want to do, we want this cube's position to affect the thickness of this thing. So when we move the cube here, we want this thing to become like this big. That's what we want. So, oh, actually, maybe we just want part of it to move. Anyway, let's go move the cube back to where it was. Let's change its position to 0, 0, 0. That's the null object. Okay, see, it's 0, 0, 0 in a null object. Let's move this. Anyway, it doesn't matter. As long as the cube is at 0, 0, 0. Here, see, we can scale it a bit so it, scale with a T key. Okay, now, what we are going to do, we're going to drag this cube into here, and we're going to drag this flower spline into here. Now, for the cube, we want its position. We want its position in the X, see, red X. So we want basic properties, no, we want coordinates, position X. And we're going to feed that into the flowers. What do we want? Let's see. We want to scale the flower's outer radius, let's say. So we want it to go bigger as the cube gets away. So we're going to go object properties, outer radius. And we're going to just click and drag these in. Now, see, the problem is it makes the outer radius 0 because the cube is currently at 0. And then if we move it out, it does get bigger, but it's not quite the way we want it, because then it goes to negative and stuff, and you know, we have very little control over this, because right now it's just directly feeding whatever the X position is, 387, into the radius of the flower. But we want to change this. We want, for example, when the cube is at 0, we want the flower radius, the outer radius to be, say, we want it to be like, want it to be like, where is it? We want it to be 100 and, let's just make it like, there we go. I want it to be 130. And then when the cube is all the way out here, like at 800, we want the flower radius to be, I don't know, let's say 265. So we need a range mapper for that. It is a node where we right click, we go new node, Expresso, calculate, range mapper. And now what we do is we plug in the input value. We have range mapper here. Now, currently we're not converting like degrees to to distance or anything, or percentages. So for now we can just leave this as data type real, user defined, and let's go input lower 0, input no 130, no input lower 0 position, and output position of this cube is 830. So output lower, wait, output input upper is 830, and the output that we're gonna get it to spit out will be 130 to, I think we decided on 100 and, what did we decide on? 265. 265. And now we feed this into the range mapper, and then we feed the range mapper into the flower node. So now when we get the cube, see here, 130 radius, here we select the sweep. Just lock this so we can see it. Then get the cube, and right now see, it's 130 here, and if we move it out, it goes to 260. So if we want to, we can make it more exaggerated. So for example, unlock this field, select the range mapper. We can make it, go higher when it's up there. And now the cube will move only a small distance, and there'll be a huge change in size. That is what the range mapper does. It converts, it's kind of like scales stuff, I guess. But it can also convert stuff. For example, if I want the cube's rotation instead of the position to affect the size, for example, I want, let's go, input range will be degrees, and 0 to say 180. And here we will double click on this to get rid of it. We will go, let's find the rotation that we want. We want this cube when it's rotating like this, so from 0 to 180. Actually, maybe let's make it easier. Like this. There you go. So when it turns 90 degrees, we want it to go to 265. So, and we're rotating in the B. See, when you rotate down here, you can see what field, if it's the, I forgot what the names for them are. It's like pitch, bank, and heading. Yes, right. Yeah, heading, pitch, bank, and banking. It's like plain terminology or something. So let's get the rotation B. We go to coordinates, rotation B, and we plug it in to the input. And now look, when we're vertical, we have what we wanted. It is 130 or something, and when we rotate, it gets bigger. We can keep rotating, obviously. Or if you don't want it to go past those, you go to range mapper and you tick clamp lower and upper, and now it will only see it goes, that's only as far as it goes. Right, let's change this to 90 degrees. There you go, that's max, that's the lowest. See? Very useful little feature. And this is used in animation all the time. When you want, for example, like, if you're animating a crane and you want it when you raise it, you want the scoop to go out or something, or if you have pistons or something and you want, when you raise an object, you want the pistons to go up as well. It can be used in many uses, like, for simulate, like, like, usually you do it reverse though. It's like, and it's like reverse kind of mechanics. So you get the object that you want to be the final movement, like, for example, like a cherry picker or something, or something on an extendable arm, and you move the front object, like the end object, and then according to where that end object is, the objects behind it will move. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so let's make something more. Let's get into this a bit more. Let's keep moving forward. As I was saying, we can Expresso. You can feed anything you want into it. Like pretty much everything in Cinema 4D is feedable into Expresso. Like you can select stuff like, for example, you can make an array object, right? And let's stick this sweep knobs under it. And let's just increase the radius a bit. I think it's a bit too much. Let's go copies like 3. And just reduce some of these settings because my whole thing is slightly lagging. With it? Object, sweep knobs, flower perhaps, yeah. 1, no, 50. There we go. Okay. Now, let's say we want, for example, this. Let's get some new objects so we can, have something more fun to play with. Let's plug in a. Let's get a star object. There we go. And let's change the number of. Actually, wait. No. Let's make it even more. I mean, why bother with this? Let's apply a material to these objects. Let's go to close my material editor. Let's get a material, and let's make its color, say, bright red. Let's apply it to this array object. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this star's rotation to adjust the brightness of this material. So we're going to get this star, we're going to plug it in here. We're going to check its rotation. So still the B rotation. So rotation, coordinates, rotation, B. And then we're going to get this material, and we're going to drag it in here. And we're going to go color, because in our material it's under color, the tab here. And then we're going to go adjust this brightness, so it goes from black to red. Color, brightness. And we're going to obviously need a range mapper, so just control and click and drag this thing. Also, to move around this viewport, it's just like Cinema 4D viewport. You Alt and middle click to move around, Alt and right click to zoom in and out. And this range mapper is going to go from in the B rotation, so we have rotation here, from say 0 to 90, and the output will be %, and it will be 0 to 100. So we drag these together, we join them as we did before, and now when we rotate the star, the brightness goes up, down, see? That's kind of what I'm talking about. This is why Expresso is quite awesome. But now let's go a bit further, because this is all great, look, I can make this rotation of the star, but it still doesn't really help with explanations of, for example, if you give this file to someone, he's got to figure out, the star rotation makes the brightness. But what you can do is you can, for example, on your null object, always use some null objects because it makes it easier to find. There's a thing called user data. Well, user data, manage user data. We're going to add data by clicking this button here. Let's put this on screen. And we're going to call this brightness. And we're going to make it a %. It's going to be a float. It's going to be a float slider, and it's going to have a % from 0 to 100. And what we're going to do is now, if you click on this null object and we go user data, we have this slider here, which we can drag left and right. We're going to feed this slider into the star, which will rotate the star, which in turn will change the brightness of the tubes. So we will get this null object, we will drag it in. We click this thing, we go user data and brightness. And then we will click and drag the range mapper again, and we will put our input range as %, output range as degrees, and we will go from 0 to 100 and from 0 to 90. And we will drag these in and drag it onto the blue box and go coordinates, rotation, B. Now on this null object, when we select this data, we can click, see, and the star rotates and the brightness increases. So we're getting this nice little chain of stuff. Now, this is a short example. We can keep on going. We can add tags to this as well. For example, if you have, say, let's make a cone, for example, right? And we have a cube up here, and we'll call that cube 1. And we have another cube, and we call it 2. We'll move it. Oops. We'll move it across here. Let's there, so it's easy to tell. Now, let's say we want this slider that wrote, oops, H. We want this slider in a null object, which changes the color. We want it to control which direction this cone is pointing at. So let's get our cone and stick a Cinema 4D, no, that's a Mocket, where is it? Character, that's right. Constraint tag. And we will make it aim. We will add, it will aim with the y-axis, because it's the green one with the point, and it will aim at this cube. And then we will make another target, which is also with the y-axis, and we will aim it at the second cube. Now, currently it is in between the two. If we drag the weight down, it will point either to that one or it will point to that one. What we want to do is we want this slider to affect which one it's pointing at. So we're going to get our slider, which is called brightness, and we're going to feed it into these tags. So, oops, H to focus viewport. We're going to get these two cubes and this. We're going to get, no, actually we really need the cone here. No, we don't need the cone, we need the tag. That's what we're dragging. We're dragging in the tag. Let's smooth this up. And this range, we're going to affect, we're going to go to, where is it? To aim and targets. And see there's two weights, that's for the first object and for the second object. We're going to add both these weights. And we're going to add two range mappers, because we need to, what we want to do is we want to do when this null object's brightness slider is at 100%, we want one of these sliders to be at 100% and the other one to be at 0. So, and we're sliding between percentages, so we're going to switch both of these to percent and this to percent. And now hopefully, yep, it's 0 to 100, this one's 0 to 100. But we want one of them to be 100 to 0 instead of 0 to 100. So we drag this brightness into here, we drag this into here, we drag this into here, and we drag this into here. And now we click, and we check what we get. Okay, it's nearly working. See, we have, it turns it off. If we want to see where our problem lies, we can open another one of these, and we can click on this, and we can go, and now we can see when you make a new one, it automatically locks the object you had. Now when we drag this brightness, okay, the bottom thing changes, but the top one for some reason does not. So we have the problem with the first field, which is here, this one. So let's see what our problem is. Input lower, output lower. Let's take reverse and put this to 0 and 100 and see what happens. Yep, there we go. So instead of flipping, you can just go reverse and it works. Like sometimes there's a few issues that you have to figure out. It's just from experience of which ones, how it works and how it doesn't. But the point is you can tick this reverse button and it just flips them. So see, now when the brightness is high, it points to the, let's make this cube say to the long cube. And when the brightness is low, it points to the normal cube. This is what Expresso is all about. This is, this is what you do with it. You can add these things, as you can see. You can just keep on adding them to each other. You can range map them. You can, control stuff. Now, the last thing I want to, I think it's the last thing. I'll check again in a second. But I want to explain to you what the difference here you might have noticed when you click on stuff. Here you have coordinates. Where is it? No, for objects. You have coordinates and you have global position and you have normal position. I'm going to explain to you what the difference between this is right now. We're going to delete all this stuff because we don't need it anymore. This is the coordinate system. This is, this is where 0, 0, 0 is. These 3 points, that's where 0, 0. So if you make an object, it will be where 0, 0 is 0 is. Its coordinates are 0, 0, 0. Now, that is its global coordinates and its local coordinates at this moment. Now, if you put this cube into a null object, like by pressing Alt-G, now they're both 0, 0, 0, but this cube is getting, its coordinate system is now where the null object is. So if we move the null object, the cube is still at 0, 0, 0, but the null object is at x 858. So the cube's local position is 0, 0, 0, and its rotation is 0, 0, 0. Well, let's rotate the null as well. See, we can rotate the null. And now the null's rotation is 85 degrees, but the cube's rotation is still 0. Because so now the local rotation of the cube is 0, but the world rotation of the cube is actually 85. So when you want an object to rotate relative to its parent, you use, in here you use, where it's in for the tags, Xpresso. When you want it to rotate relative to its parents, like in a hierarchy, you use the normal coordinates, positions, and rotations, like the ones from down here. But if you wanted to rotate in the world, so if you always wanted to be, you know, at position x850 when you drag the slider, then you have to use global rotation and global position. That's the main difference between it. Yeah, okay, I'll just one second. Oh yeah, of course, there's the last thing that I forgot to tell you, the thing this kind of helps you when you're working. For example, if you want to know this cube's current position, you can feed that stuff into a text object. Like, you know, this is probably something I should have covered first, but I'm sure you could have figured it out by now. You can get this cube's position, for example, cube, where is it? Oh, this null object. Let's go with the null object instead. Null position. You see, but this is how I should have demonstrated it. For the cube, we have coordinates, position x, and we feed that into this text. Object properties, text. And now see, the cube is currently, its local position is, let's make this another text here and move it up. And drag it in here, and okay, I don't know what the cube's doing here. And let's go position, coordinates, global position x. And feed that into the object properties text. Now see there, you have this, you have the cube and its local position is 0, but its global position, because we've moved this null, is actually completely different. And you can feed this stuff into this, you know, you can feed, you know, and using a range mapper, you can feed it into its percentages and stuff. So, you know, if you have some kind of crane or anything that's moving and you want its angle of incline to be displayed on the screen, you can plug it in like this and you have this dynamic, you know, number thing which tells you how far it is. You know, there's things like the distance node, for example. It's another useful one. New node, Expresso, calculate distance. So you get two objects, you get this cube, and you make another one over here. Plug them both in. You go coordinates. Once again, you can do local position or global position, doesn't really matter. But I guess global position in this case is more logical because it will be the, you know, distance. Damn it. Coordinates global, it'll be the distance in the world, like not. Anyway, just make sure they're the same. And now, if we feed this into the text, which is here. Now when we move the cubes, see, the distance between them changes. You don't even need to do any kind of, you know, Pythagoras' theorem or anything, you just go distance, and ta-da! And then you can make that distance, you can, you know, feed that into the color channel of something. You know, like everything here, like you can find, you know, you have lights. They have all these like stuff like details and visibility and all this stuff. See, if it has this little circle, which means you can keyframe it, you can drag this in and you can find all that stuff in here. You know, details, general, you know, whether it casts shadows. Like a useful thing is using hypernurbs. For example, say you have a cube with a hypernurb. Let's put a cube in there. Let's get rid of this light. Now. And you have a distance node calculating the distance from this hypernurb to the camera. You can actually hook up, you can drag it in here, and you can hook up its subdivisions, so object properties, subdivisions in the editor. So you can make them small when the camera is far away, and you can make them large when the camera is close up. You know, it's kind of stuff like that. You know, you can, for example, trees and stuff, you can affect them, you can make them, you know, have lots, if you're using MoGraph thing, you can have them have lots of leaves when they're close up, and you can have them have less leaves when they're far away. It's, you know, everything, like, you know, you go to your MoGraph module and you have your cloner object, and, you know, this all has parameters, all these parameters, like, you know, numbers, counts, you know, offsets, and even the effectors, you know, you plug in, for example, where is it, your, you know, your plane effector or your random effector, and you can feed all this information into each other to build these kind of, you know, intricate webs of dependencies between objects. it's, and most of it just really requires a range mapper. Sometimes distance is useful. There's heaps of, there's stuff like, math add and math, subtract, whereas at Expresso calculate. There's stuff like, float. I'm not sure what float math is, but there's math nodes, which basically can let you know, see it has two inputs again, and you can select if you add it, subtract it, multiply it, divide it, and this is like, you can even build like, calculators. I once built a system. Actually, let me find it 1 second. Okay, I can't really find the one that I'm looking for because this file seems to be slightly messed up. But basically, this was a system that I built for calculating yield in airplanes. So you can affect seat distribution, and it'll output a yield per cabin. So you could change here, like in this one, you could change the relationship between business class and economy seats, and it would output a number based on factors that you put in, like seat seat factor, how much seats are full, the prices per seat and stuff. And you could also change for different planes. You could change the distance from left to right, and then you could go to economy class and you could change. There was a setting somewhere which you could change the number of seats. I think, yeah. No, it must. I did this really long time ago. Front of cabin, economy class, seats, economy seat. I think I gotta affect the size of the seats too. Yeah, see, I set it up so that the MoGraph module, so when you scale the size of the seats, the width and stuff like seat, like pitch. I'm just trying to find where it is, to be honest. I just can't seem to find it. But basically, yeah, it's, there's this wonderful Expresso. Actually, this doesn't look as fun. But here, there you go. It's a wonderful, huge system of stuff which covers everything from, I know it feels kind of odd that I can't show you a working version of it right now, but basically, yeah, it worked at some point. Maybe this earlier version of it works better. Some plugin missing. Let's see. Nope, that's not it. Back of cabin, maybe that's it. No. Okay, well, anyway, you get the point. You can use Expresso to do like rather complex calculations, involving different factors that you can plug in through fields. Like, you can plug stuff like, for example, in user data. Let's just show you one last thing here on my projects. You can actually plug, user data on this null object. You can go, user data, manage user data, add data. It doesn't have to be a percentage. It can be a string. And you can go, okay, and now here there will be string that you can type in. And you can feed that into the position of an object, for example. So if you are into a math node or into anything, you want to exaggerate if you can feed data, like if you can feed, bar graphs with this information. Basically, you can do like a lot of stuff with it. You just have to use your imagination, kind of apply it. It's kind of a lot of logical thinking. I'll probably do tutorials more on specific projects, but later on. But this should kind of show you what Expresso is used for. Why you'd want to use it, and hopefully get you started in this very fun part of Cinema 4D. Okay, if you have any questions, ask away. I'm usually around. I check. If not, if I don't answer your question, email me or go to I'm on mograph.net a lot. If you have any questions, you can ask there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Have fun with it.